Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with one-pan chicken sausage, peppers, and potatoes. That's right, I'm going to show you how to make a quick and easy stovetop version of one of our most popular recipes of all time, which involve the same ingredients being roasted in the oven. And by the way, since the name is kind of long, we've given this the nickname Chisaupepo, which is quicker and I think definitely more fun to say. But no matter what you call this, it's incredibly delicious and super easy to make. And to get started, what we'll do is drizzle some olive oil into a large skillet, preferably nonstick. And once we've transferred in a couple tablespoons, we will take one Italian sausage and we'll slice open the casing. And then we'll break off little nuggets about this size and we'll distribute those evenly around the pan. And no, they don't all have to be exactly the same size, although sort of close would be good. And by the way, this is a sweet Italian sausage, but of course if you want you could use spicy, which is what we used in the original version of Chisaupepo. But anyway, once that pan's been sausaged, we'll go ahead and place in some potatoes cut side down, which can be some small potatoes like this cut in half, or some larger potatoes cut into pieces that look like small potatoes cut in half. Okay, as long as they're about this size, it doesn't matter. But regardless, we do want to place those in so they're in full contact with the pan. And then what we'll do after the potatoing is place in some pieces of raw chicken, which in my case were some cut up boneless, skinless chicken thighs. And for the best searing, these really should be placed smooth side down, which I didn't start to do, which is why you're going to see me flip these over in a few seconds. And yes, of course, if you want to use chicken breast, go ahead. I mean, you are after all the Vincent van Gogh of your Chisaupepo. And speaking of ears, you should listen to this disclaimer. If you use breast meat, the timing of this dish is much harder to pull off, since that can dry out very quickly. Whereas on the other hand, the chicken thighs make this a super simple, easy to cook dish, since they are much more forgiving, and you really have to try a lot harder to overcook those. But anyway, once our chicken has been tucked in, we will stop and do some seasoning, including a generous amount of kosher salt, as well as some freshly ground black pepper. And because I am using mild Italian sausage, we'll do a few shakes of cayenne to heat things up. And then at this point, we'll also scatter over a little bit of dried herbs, which can be your classic Italian seasoning blend, which is usually oregano, thyme, rosemary, maybe some sage. Or if you're keeping score at home, I'm actually using herb de Provence, which is all that stuff I just said plus a little touch of lavender, which I find interesting and borderline exotic. But anyway, go ahead and use a little pinch of whatever dried herbs you like. And then over our chicken sausage and potato layer, we'll go ahead and scatter over some sliced onions, which could be diced onions, if you dice them instead of slice them. And then as the name of the dish would indicate, we will also need some peppers. And I use 3 different kinds here. Some nice sweet red bell pepper, and then a couple green peppers in the form of poblano and Anaheim. And that is pretty much going to be it. We will just finish off with one more possibly unnecessary drizzle of olive oil, and then one more pinch of salt for those veggies on the top. And besides cooking it, this recipe is pretty much done. Okay, all we need to do is bring this to the stove, where we will place it over high heat, and we will leave it over high heat for about 5 minutes until that pan gets nice and hot and everything starts to sear, at which point it's probably going to sound something like this. Oh yeah, now that is definitely searing. And what's happening here is the fat from the sausage is rendering out and mixing with the olive oil in the pan. And that is creating this incredibly flavorful fat in which all our other ingredients are starting to brown and caramelize, which yes, is the same thing. And what we want to do is let that go for about 5 minutes or so, or until we have some nice browning on our sausage, as well as our pieces of potato will start to take on some nice color. And once that's happened, what we'll do is lower our heat to medium-high, at which point we'll cover this, and we'll let it cook for another 5 minutes or so, or until our potatoes are just about tender. And as usual, the times I'm giving you are just guesses, since it depends on your pan and your heat setting and the size of your ingredients. But anyway, you don't need exact times, because at any point you can pull off the lid and test those potatoes with a knife. And if you think they need a little more time, you can pop the lid back on and let them cook, which is exactly what I did here. All right, they were getting close to almost being tender, but I decided after giving them the old poka, they did need a little more time. So I popped that lid back on and gave another minute or two, at which point I removed the cover and moved into final production. And as you can see, we've achieved some beautiful caramelization. And again, not just any caramelization, super flavorful sausage fat caramelization, which just like the oven roasted version, really is the secret behind this dish's incredible flavor. But anyway, what we'll do at this point is flip those potatoes and chicken pieces over. Which reminds me, if you don't want your pieces seared as deeply as mine, you could use a lower heat. But as you can see, I do like to go for a very dark sear, since that really does make this more flavorful and more savory, and will give our pan drippings a nice dark deep color. And then what we'll do to finish this off is simply dump in a half cup of chicken broth, or if times are tough, you could just use a splash of water. And we will let that cook and reduce for a couple minutes, at which point, assuming our potatoes are tender, which they really should be by now, we can go ahead and stir all this together and turn off the heat, since we are pretty much ready to serve. Although for one final touch, I do like to squeeze over half a lemon for a little bit of brightness and for a little bit of acidity to cut through the richness. And as an alternative, you could use some wine with your broth or instead of, and that would also serve a similar purpose. But anyway, personally, I do enjoy the lemon in this. And other than squeezing that in and giving this a quick taste, we are ready to serve this up, which I like to do on a piece of toasted Italian bread, so as to soak in all those amazing juices. But obviously, this would be incredible over potatoes or rice or pasta. And after serving that up and spooning over a proper amount of those peppers and onions and juices, we might want to finish up with some fresh herb. In my case, some freshly chopped Italian parsley. And that's it, our one-pan, stovetop version of Chisaupepo is ready to enjoy. And yes, we're still working on which syllables to emphasize. But anyway, portmanteaus aside, this, my friends, without a doubt, is one of the tastiest, most flavorful, most savory things you'll ever eat. As I already mentioned, not only is that sausage delicious, but the seasonings in the sausage have now permeated the dish and seasoned the other ingredients, creating this new incredible array of flavors. And don't even get me started on how good that toast underneath is. Okay, this is worth making just to enjoy that. And while I really do love the original version, which we do in the oven in a giant roasting pan, this scaled down stovetop version produces something almost identical in flavor. So if you were a fan of that Chisaupepo, I think you will like this Chisaupepo just as much, if not more. Oh, and in case you're wondering, I was trying to smash one of these potatoes with a fork to show you how soft and creamy they get. Except that wasn't a potato, it was a piece of chicken. So it just looked like I was doing something weird, which I guess I was. Oh, and if you do make this, make sure you take a peek in your fridge first, since I think this would be a perfect catch-all for other seasonal vegetable ingredients like zucchini, or mushrooms, or other kind of peppers, etc. So take a look, since this method is very adaptable. But whether you include other ingredients, or make this exactly as shown, this is one of my all-time favorite things to eat. And I really do hope you give this a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.